My name is Rob Kalmbacher, Kalmbacher, and I live at Grace Farm in Lincolnton, North Carolina. Why soil health, good soil health, is important to my farm? Well, there's a profit motive there, and then there's also a stewardship motive, but it's hard to put a price on the stewardship motive. Um, this land that I have is a trust to me, and I care for it a great deal. The soils that we have here are very good soils. They're valuable soils. We put this in a conservation easement 10 years ago, and I recall at the time when we applied for the conservation easement that it was mentioned what good soils that we have here. They're deep, they're well-drained soils, there are a variety of soils. We have quite a bit of pasture along the South Fork River. There are alluvial soils. We have some soils, upland soils, that are very good soils, and it's important to me to take care of it. And a steward takes care of all things. But then there's a profit motive as well to taking care of the soil, and we uh, we strive to make a profit on this farm, and the things that we do, we are endeavoring to make a profit. And so the things that we're doing, so pasture management, good pasture management, they go hand in hand with stewardship. So it's profit, and it's also a stewardship motive involved in this. Well, as I said, good soil health and good pasture management go hand in hand. And first and foremost, we try and maintain a good cover on the land with our forage crops. And so I have a variety of forage crops. I have in the river bottom, they're all warm season grasses, Bermuda grass and a native grass called eastern gamma grass. And in the upland pastures, they're all fescue pastures, fescue and ladino clover. And so we try and maintain a good cover of grass for the cattle on a year-round basis. Also, we try and use good soil fertility. I soil test annually. In the last couple of years, I've kind of gotten away from that because I've built my soils up to the point where they are fertile. But we apply good fertility practices. We use rotational grazing as well, and it's not a high intensity, short duration system, except in the times when the pastures are rapidly growing in the spring and perhaps in the fall, this time of the year. But I rotate my cattle. In the wintertime, I strip graze stockpiled fescue, and by strip grazing, I give them a daily allotment of grass. And my pasture in the front is a quarter of a mile long, and I move the fence about 12 feet every day in there, and that gives them enough forage to get them from the 1st of November until about Valentine's Day. And so I strip graze that. I feed a little bit of hay with that. I'd like to get to the point where I don't feed any hay at all. But the cattle are on that strip graze area until about the 1st of March, and then they go back down to the river bottom pastures where I have Bermuda grass. Bermuda grass is overseeded with rye and ryegrass, and that gives me spring grazing as well until the Bermuda grass comes on. So we try and maintain a diversity of different forage crops, and the quality of those crops it will vary during the year, and we try and meet the needs of the cows as their nutritional needs change during the year. Right now, the cows are lactating. Calves are being born the end of October and 1st of November, so they need a good diet at this time, and so they're on well fertilized fescue at this time and ladino clover. I use eastern gamagrass in the bottom pastures. It's a native warm season grass, and I wean my cattle on that around the 4th of July. I fence line wean my calves down there. The cows are on the Bermuda grass, and I separate out the cows and put them on the calves and put them on the eastern gamagrass until they're weaned, and so they're on that gamagrass for about 3 weeks to a month. But I minimize soil disturbance as much as I can, which is an important part of maintaining good soil health, in addition to having good cover and good soil fertility. But so I no-till, use no-till seeding to seed the ryegrass and the rye in the river bottom pastures. So I try and use as many practices that are profitable as I can uh, to minimize my expenses. Yeah. The cost of implementing these practices to maintain good soil health are essentially the same costs as you're going to have for just good pasture management. In other words, there's no additional outside cost of combining good soil health into your as one of the objectives of your program. As I said, I use a sod seeding drill to seed my pastures, and I mow the pastures only once a year. I try and minimize as much as I can any inputs that I can. In other words, mowing and so on, and minimize my fertilizer applications as much as possible. I use herbicides very sparingly, only when I absolutely have to. And I think my cows do a pretty good job of controlling the weeds with the short duration grazing. They pretty well take care of that. But as far as outside costs, additional costs that are involved in maintaining good soil health, there are none that I can think of. Yeah. Out of 107 acres on the property, 75 acres are in pasture. And as I said, I had upwards of 35 cows. And when you have calves, you're looking at about 70 head plus 2 bulls. So that's pretty intensive management when you consider the number of acres and the stocking rate that would be involved. So it was pretty intensive in management. And that was made possible by good soil fertility, by rotational grazing, and of course by good soil. I'm just really blessed with some of the best soils in Lincoln County. And I remember when I bought this property, one of my neighbors, who was a farmer, came by, and we were talking about the property, and he said that you've got some of the best soils in Lincoln County, and he's right. We do. They're wonderful soils. Yeah. NRCS, National Resources and Conservation Service. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, when I when I graduated from college in '68, I went to work with SCS, and that's the Soil Conservation Service at that time. And uh, I was a conservation planner in those early years before I went back to college and got my degrees. But so I really have an appreciation for soils and soil capability. NRCS has been helpful to me. We have what we call the EQUIP program, and with the help of the EQUIP program, I was able to drill an additional well for the property. We had one well for the house and the barns, but we were able to drill another well and then to put in a good bit of piping and some different watering points. And so I have some what I call pop-up waterers I can plug into the pipes along the way and put temporary waters in. So that was very helpful with the rotational grazing. So I could use more isolated portions of the pasture and graze them rather intensively without having to use other or expose other areas of pasture for grazing. But the EQUIP program has been very helpful to me as well. Soil health practices are easy to implement. And as I said, they go hand in hand with good pasture management. If you're doing the one, the other is accomplished at the same time. I would recommend highly to promote good soil health. Good soil health is part of good pasture management. They're going to go hand in hand.